Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Friday morning coffee chat. Good to see you all. For those that don't know me, my name's Rod. I'm the founder of the Learn to Paint Academy, and this is our regular Friday morning Q&A coffee chat. And really, it's your chance to get all your questions answered. Something we enjoy doing, and I think everyone's questions are valid, and there's something in it, the answer for all of us. So if I know the answer to your question, I'll definitely answer it, and if I don't, I'll let you know that as well. So welcome. As we get started here today, perhaps you could let us know whereabouts you are dialing in from. Or not dialing in, really, is it? Tuning in from. Morning Yvonne in WA, good to see you. Morning Peter in the front row over in New Zealand. Which part of New Zealand are you in, Peter? G'day Colin, how are you, mate? Good to see those listings you've been putting up. Definitely feeling a bit better, thank you. Yes. Morning Becky in Oklahoma, welcome. G'day Foxy in wet Geelong and Linda in New Brunswick, Canada. Evening Mary in the Midlands of Ireland, getting close to midnight. Morning Cheryl in Mathara. Got a Rui Boss tea, that's good. Morning Janet in Fort Wayne. And Gail in Geelong, g'day. G'day Jan on the Gold Coast and Sujata in Nevada, welcome. G'day Jenny on the Gold Coast. I am feeling a bit better, thank you. Amazing what some sleep will do. G'day Gail in Georgia and Margaret in Victoria Point, welcome. Sunny morning there. Nice and sunny here too this morning. and morning Chrissy. Haven't had any internet for a week and it's dodgy this morning too. Oh, I hope it goes okay. Far north coast of New South Wales. I like it up that part of the world. Morning Jenny. Morning Cherie. Rainy evening in Leander, Texas. Oh, pronounced Sherry. My apologies. Sherry, welcome. And Batya in South Florida. Mickey in Japan, welcome. How are you? Hey, Cindy in Catherine, Northern Territory, caravanning. Nice. Nice place to be at this time of year. Morning, Al. Thank you, yes. And where are we up to here? Morning, Jenny on the Gold Coast. Good morning, Catherine in Michigan. Catherine's ordered over 600 pieces of MDF board from Amazon. Fantastic, Catherine. That's going to keep you busy. Good to see. Peter says he's in Tauranga North Island, East Coast. There you go. Nice. Morning, Barbara. A little bit better today. Thank you, Barbara, in the Mornington Peninsula. G'day, Marg in Bendigo. Finally out of lockdown. Yes, but not the whole state, unfortunately. Catherine said, P.S. sitting at Logan's eating out, watching you. Very nice. Hope you're having something good and healthy. Morning, Tracy in the Bay. All right. We're Kathy in West Fargo. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you all. Where we get up to here? G'day, Gary. How are you? Manju in Ontario. Welcome. Tatiana, welcome. Morning, Sonia. Thank you. Yes. How do you get one of the mugs? You can't really order them. I sort of use them from time to time. I must remember to do more giveaways. So we'll do some more in next week's live streams. And for anyone who won a prize in the last Unleash, I'm just waiting for a shipment of postal tubes and stuff. They've been a bit delayed for some reason, but we'll get those out to you as soon as I get the packing equipment. Morning, Magdalene in Hobart. If they don't come today or Monday, I'll go to the post office and buy them, but I usually get them from a supplier. Hope you're well in Hobart there. So I've got a couple of little updates for you all, and one that just came to mind that I'll just make a little note of. So I hope you've all got good questions for us today. But I just wanted to give you a couple of little updates of what we've been doing, what's going on, what's coming up in the Learn to Paint Academy. What we've been doing. G'day Diane in the Gold Coast. and Linda, British Columbia, welcome. Yep, I figured you met Rod. It was a number of you from the Gold Coast here, so I'll mention this one first. We're doing a workshop in the Gold Coast, Mount Tambourine, where we're going to be doing a series of 4 workshops with my mate Ron, who runs Wisteria Cottage. And they're going to be the last 4 painting projects that Brian Cook ever created. So Brian was one of my mentors, and just before he passed away last year, he and I were talking about him coming up here, and I was going to film him, and we're going to do 4 DVDs, right, of these last 4 projects. But he passed away, and COVID delayed us, and all that sort of stuff. Then he passed away. So the projects, he'd sent me step-by-step photos of the painting projects, and I'm going to film myself painting them, given what I understand as to how he would have approached it. Now, obviously, not being him, so there's going to be a number of limitations there. But we're also going to run them as a series of one-day workshops at Wisteria Cottage. And I know there's a few of you on the Gold Coast and Brisbane who are on the call. So if that's of any interest to you at all, you need to contact Ron at Wisteria Cottage, because I think he sent out one email, and it's like nearly half full already after the first email that went out. So if you're keen to be part of that, g'day Kay. Kay is booked in for that one. So we'll see you there, Kay. Yep, that'll be good. So yeah, that's at the end of July. So it's just thought I'd let you know that. The other thing we've been up to, we did our advanced live stream yesterday. It was a follow-on from the week before in the members area. And what we were talking about in that is we were talking about doing roughed-in sort of block-ins like these, right, using acrylics without any reference photo, just from our imagination, making up compositions just to get practice, and if you're looking to sell, these become saleable little paintings. And then once, and I did 3 of them in last week's advanced live stream. And then, once you've got those dry, then working over them with, you can work over them with acrylics, but I've worked over this one. This is one of the 3 that we did. I've worked over that one in water mixable oils, and in a very short period of time, came up with a reasonable little result. So that's the approach we've sort of been playing around with in the advanced. The next time we do an advanced live stream, I'll work on those other 2, but I'll work on them at the same time, okay? So we did one individually, but I'll work on them at the same time. And congratulations to Manju, who was on our live stream yesterday. But there we go. She bought the painting, so that'll be coming out to you, Manju, as soon as that one's dry. If anyone's interested in buying the demo paintings, I've got the 2 left over from our recent challenge. So that's the Geelong landscape, and that's the Anglesey boat shed. So if anyone's interested in owning those, being demo paintings, they're going to be a lot cheaper than my regular paintings. So just contact our support desk regarding those, okay? Where we're talking about is on the Gold Coast near Brisbane. So it won't apply to everyone, the workshops I just mentioned, unless you're in the Gold Coast, Brisbane area. Morning, April, how are you? Morning, Judy in Faraday. And Celine, g'day, in Ontario. And Gail in Wyoming, welcome. G'day, Robert in Ireland. And Rajuka in Toronto, welcome. And g'day, Merrill in WA. And all right. So that's the other thing. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is masters analysis. So as you know, we try and do I won't call it monthly, because I reckon by the end of a year I'll have done maybe 8 to 10 of these, rather than committing to doing it every month, because there's going to be times when I'm away and so on. But a regular segment of the members site is, I'll take you there and show you in just one sec, is what we call our masters analysis, where every month I take a master artist and we analyse and look at their life, and we analyse their paintings. And I really enjoy it. It's one of my favourite components. I mean, I love everything we do, right? But I do enjoy taking a closer look at some of the great artists in history. And I'll just show you briefly who our master artist for this month is. And he's an artist, so I don't think gets enough credit. No, that one. Just give me 2 seconds. I should have set this up before we came on. So just hold off on any questions you may have just for the moment, and we'll get to those shortly. There we go. That's the one I want. All right. So I'll open this up. I'll just give you a brief look. And these are being uploaded today into the members area. So this will be available to go and check out as of about lunchtime today, so about 3 hours time. So our Masters analysis for this month is Alfred Sisley. So who here has heard of Alfred Sisley? Just type a yes in the comments if you have. Be always keen to know like whether the artist I'm picking are artists that you're familiar with or not. So Alfred Sisley, who's heard of Alfred Sisley? This is a professional pause so I can have a sip of my mushroom coffee. Okay, a couple of no's and one yes, a few no's. Peter's a yes. Midge is a yes. Cool. G'day, Carlene. Hey, Bridget. And Gail in Wyoming, welcome. Chrissy's a no. Barbara's a yes. Okay, interesting. A mix. A bit of a mix. Bit of a mix of no's and yeses. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, probably more no's coming through now. Catherine says, yes, I have during research. Yvonne says, yes. Okay. And this is not a test or anything like that. There's no right or wrong here. Should have been more famous. Yeah, well, I mean, he is pretty famous. I mean, to be honest, he's pretty famous. It's just that the company that he kept was more famous, right? And so it's pretty hard to shine when you are keeping the company of Monet and Renoir and Manet, Cezanne, you know, some of the what we regard today as being the greatest artists in history. So this is Alfred Sisley. He was actually he was born in Paris, and he was born to British parents, and he spent most of his life living in France, and but he was a British citizen. And just before he died, he tried to apply for citizenship of France, given that he'd lived his whole life there except for about 4 years. And they knocked him back, if you can believe that. But anyway, who knows what the reasoning behind that was. So in our Masters analysis, what we do is we go through and we look at their lives and so on, and we break that down. And if I come here, I'll show you some of his paintings. And then we take an in-depth look at his paintings, right? So this is available in our members area in one of the courses called Masters Analysis, funnily enough. And look, very much French Impressionist style, right? But a little bit more subdued. Some of his early works, like this one, a little bit on the darker sort of palette. He was influenced by the Barbizon group of artists. I love this one, just the harmony of the colour scheme and the way it fades off into that grey atmosphere in the distance. And you know, you'll see some of these and you'll think, oh, that looks like a Monet style painting, right? Well, it's because they probably stood side by side and their works influenced each other. And in the Masters Analysis program, we compare a Monet with one of Alfred's paintings of the same subject. So, fantastic artist. Really enjoyed having a closer look at his work. And that will be ready and available in the members area shortly. Alrighty. So log in and look for that later on today or tomorrow if you're in the evening time. So that's our Masters analysis for this month. Really excited about that. I personally love Alfred's work, and some of his paintings has a real subtlety to it. There's hardly any detail at all in his buildings and his figures and things, but he had a real subtlety to his paintings. So I quite liked his work. All right. So, you've seen his art in Launceston Art Gallery. Well, that's interesting. I first saw his a painting of his in the Melbourne NGV Gallery, but didn't know they had one in Launceston. That would be interesting to see. So that's Alfred Sisley, and quite enjoyed that. The other thing I wanted to just briefly mention to you, this won't apply to everybody. Some of you already will know about it, and then we'll get into your questions shortly thereafter. Okay, is the Artist Business Academy. So I've started working on, I get asked a lot by other artists to help them build a business around their art and start earning an income, even if it's a part-time income. And in the past, I haven't had time or haven't allocated time to really to be able to assist people in a impactful way. So I've decided to put together the Artist Business Academy. Now, some of you will be aware of this. For those of you who aren't, the web address is artistbusiness.academy. If you're interested in learning how to create a business around your art, start selling your art, generating an income from your art, you can pop your email address in there so you go on the notification list for when we officially launch. And we're doing a small group at the moment going through one of the first courses. So this eventually will have a whole lot of different courses built out, and everything to do with the business side of being an artist. So if you have no desire at all to become a working artist of some description, even if that's part-time, then this won't apply to you, so you can just ignore this little section. But if you have any sort of inkling that at some stage you'd like to be able to sell your paintings, and even if it was to earn enough money to pay for your art supplies, then this will be of interest to you. So you'll go to artistbusiness.academy and pop your email address in, and you'll be on the notification list for when we get ready to roll. Alrighty? And next Thursday, so this is Friday for me, so in 6 days' time, so it'll be in between our Wednesday live painting and our Friday coffee chat next week, I'm going to do an hour, maybe an hour and a half live stream, similar to the one I did during the Unleash the Artist Within challenge. So if you want a refresher, then please join us. And it will be on how to get started selling your art, how to move from that hobby artist level into somebody who's starting to generate an income from their art. So that'll be next Thursday, and I'll be sending out information for that. It won't be on Facebook. It will be on a private page, so you'll just need to register your email for it. And if it's of interest at all for you, then come along and join us in that one. And I'll just help you outline a plan to get to $500 a month. Okay. We haven't done any Zoom groups yet, Carlene. It's way too early at this stage. So just be patient, and we're not going to actually do any of the Zoom groups or calls until people have started actually implementing the first module and getting up to speed with that. So, all right, friends, I'm going to throw it open to your questions. So if you have questions about anything at all, then type them in, and my pleasure, Linda. And I'll just flick through a few more of these while we chat. I like this one. Look at that church way off in the distance. The atmosphere he's got there, and that building in the middle there. He's got that little bit of sunlight on it. Fantastic. Yeah. So fire away of any questions you have while I flick through some of these paintings. Look how little detail there is in the trees and the buildings there. Yet the painting as a whole works really well. Same with this one. Very little detail. But the fundamentals are there, composition and design, that's strong. The value's got a big dark sort of dominant shape in that left-hand side. And his colour, everything's, all the fundamentals there are working. I'm just going to try and find, I'll just zip through to, I love this one. I'll talk about this one in our one of our painting analysis. So I'll break that one down in a bit of detail. This one here. So this one here, there's Monet did a number of paintings that are very similar, same scene, and the whole approach is very, very similar to this one of Cicely's. And it almost feels like they were standing there together, painting a lot of these paintings. So a lot of similarities between them. But in his lifetime, Cicely didn't get the same sort of acclaim as what Monet did. Well, Monet really was the end of his life. But okay, let's get into your questions. Becky says, I have heard that I should use a medium to thin my acrylic paints for the underpainting. Do you ever do that? Becky, you can get a medium. If you have particularly thick acrylic paint, it's quite viscous, then medium could work to thin it down. There's two different types of acrylic you can get. There's heavy body or viscous acrylic, and then there's flow acrylic, which if you're having problems with it not flowing, you could try a flow acrylic for your blocking. But you know what I've always used is just a bit of water. Right? Just dip your brush in water, thin the paint down with a little bit of water, and then I do my underpainting with that. And I've never used a medium to thin my acrylics down. So that's the other approach you could take. So, mediums are good, but you can overcomplicate the process. Yeah. So I haven't found any added benefit using a medium to thin acrylic paints down. I found water to be perfectly adequate. Meryl says, to attach a loose canvas to a board, what glue should I use? That's the question you might want to go to your local art store and ask. I don't really know. If any of our people online here today know the answer, then let us know. It would need to be archival and acid-free. So this is not something that I typically would do. So I can't answer directly, Meryl. But if anyone knows the answer, then please let us know. But it would definitely want to be acid-free, pardon me, and archival. So, Al said, I thought it would be interesting to talk about how your colour choices next to other colours changes how you see colour. Well, that's a big topic, Al, and yes, it would be interesting. Maybe it's something we need to do a session on. But I often say that the colour you mix on your palette is going to look very different on the canvas because you see colour in relative terms to the other colours around it. And so you have to be careful when you mix something you think is just right. You put it up on the canvas and it could be not quite right. So you have to do a test. So I always mix up a colour and then do a test next to the other colours. So colour's a relative thing. It's not an absolute value. And there are certain psychological tests that they do that prove that to you. Our brain perceives colour in a certain way and it's impacted by the other colours around it. So a good example, actually, I talked about this in the Alfred Cicely Masters Analysis. There's one of the paintings there where the warm highlight just absolutely pops off the page. And I was talking about how do you get such a warm highlight to really jump off the page like that. And the key to it is to make sure you've got enough darks around it so that it becomes a relative comparison. That's a big topic, but I think in general terms, colour's relative. Our brain perceives colour based on the relationship it has with the other colours around it. So that's something for us to think about, and perhaps we can explore further with a bit of preparation. Jenny says, hi Rod, what is a medium used for in acrylic painting? Is it different to a retarder? Well, a retarder is a medium. So a medium is anything that alters the properties of the acrylic paint. And there are different types of mediums for different purposes. So a retarder will slow down the drying time of the paint. You could get a retarder to, as we talked about, a medium to make the paint flow easier, so thinning it down. You can get a medium to make it thicker, more viscous. You can get a medium that'll give it more of a gloss to it, or more of a satin sort of sheen. So all a medium does is alter the properties of the paint. Okay. Now you've got to keep in mind that manufacturers of paint are in the business of selling you and I as much as they possibly can. So a lot of them just sit there all day long dreaming up what else can we sell these people? What other mediums can we add to the product range, right? And rightly so, because they're in business and businesses are there to make a profit for their shareholders, right? As well as serve their customers. So I think mediums overcomplicate things until you really mastered the basic paint itself. I don't recommend mediums. I occasionally say, okay, use a retarder in the sky so you can get some soft blends. Beyond that, all I've ever used is water in my acrylic paint. Okay, so but in basic terms, a medium is something that just alters the properties of the paint. Midge says, I use synthetic brushes with soft bristles, but I think you may have used with coarse bristles. Midge, I've used both. I've used everything. There's no right or wrong at all. I used to use a lot of hog hair bristle brushes, natural hair, and in recent times I've gone much more towards synthetic hair brushes, and largely, well, these synthetics stand up a bit better in water. So if you leave them in a water pot, which I tend to do, they're going to hold up better. But the other reason why I've switched is more of a conscious decision because of the way the product's derived, right? So so there's no right or wrong. Use whatever makes you happy, and I personally use big flat brushes, synthetic hair, and long handles. Right, so I try and order them with extra long handles if I can. Okay, but there's no right or wrong. At the end of the day, whatever tool gets you to the end result. I think the biggest consideration in terms of supplies is the quality of the paint that you're using, right? That's the first thing you want to get right. Get the best quality paint you can. And then the next biggest thing is the best quality surface to paint on, okay? And then brushes after that. Because brushes won't be, in 20 years' time, the painting that's on the wall, the brushes won't have much impact, okay? But the paint will still be there and so will the surface. So that's the way I tend to think about it. G'day, Rosalie. Rosalie said, definitely see a similar style to Monet. Regarding the Business Academy, I've watched the link you sent, Jim Rohn. Was there more than this? Perhaps I've missed something. Yes, there was more than that. You may have missed it, Rosalie, but your account is set up and the intro and the first module and everything is, not, the first module is not complete, but there's quite a bit of content in there. So check your emails because we sent out an email to everyone a week ago. So double check, and if you haven't got it, then go to our support desk and get help there. Teresa said, I purchased slow drying blending gel medium. Haven't tried it yet. This is the perfect topic for me right now. Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, as I said, manufacturers are coming out with all sorts of products, and so they'll come up with different ways of creating slow drying mediums, so gels and all sorts of things. But give it a try. I'd be really interested to hear how you go. I've never personally, I've got different, what have I got here? I always buy these things, but then you can see how much I use this one, right? I squeezed out a little bit here. And what's this one? This is a painting paste, right? Painting paste. And it's designed to make the paint more transparent. That's what its purpose is, okay? So I can use opaque paints and make them more transparent. And it's a gel, right? And so I tried it a couple of times and I thought this seems a little bit pointless, right? That's just me. So give it a try and see how you go. Barbara's asked, what's the advantage of long handle brushes? I tend to like to hold my brushes down the end as much as possible. And that just makes my grip on them a bit looser and I can stand back further, right? Gives me more, so that I don't like to be too close to the subject, but just holding it at the end with a longer brush gives it just a looser feel, and I like loose sort of style of painting. Okay, where are we up to? G'day, Julie. Julie says she's looking forward to checking out the Masters analysis. Good. Catherine says, to attach to the board to paint, Rod, didn't you say to use blue tack? I use blue tack to attach the MDF board to this backboard. Yes, correct. Serena says, good morning from a very cold Greenmount. G'day, Serena, how are you? Yep, that's right, Catherine. I use Blue Tack for that, absolutely. Jenny says she finds it hard holding the brush at the end. Well, it's like anything, it's just practice. And you have to want to achieve a loose result as well. Now, I tend to, when I'm doing our live streams and demos, I do tend to gravitate further up the brush because I tend to get a little bit, not stress, what's the word? You know, I've got a lot going on and I'm not really painting in my natural way when we do the live streams. And so I do tend to gravitate down towards there, and I have to keep reminding myself to loosen my grip. Loosen my grip on reality. Alrighty. Where are we up to? Do you attach the D-rings to the frame or the backing board? To the frame, I would think, Sonia. Would be where you'd put it. If the painting's framed, then you would attach it to the frame, yeah. Cheryl says, years ago it used to be a rabbit size glue, but not sure. Yeah, I mean, there are still artists who talk about some rabbit glue of some description. I'm not even sure what it is. But that's a very old method, and perhaps there's something, you know, that's a bit more accessible these days. Nobody wants to be chasing rabbits around to make your own glue. I'm not even sure if art supplies stores supply it today, but yeah, for a while there I was taking lessons with David LaFell and his group of artists, and they were talking about how to, you know, prepare boards and stuff, and they were talking about some sort of rabbit-based glue, and my conscience tuned out. So, no worries, Merrill. Magdalene from Hobart, what is your preferred varnish, matte or gloss? Any favourite brand as a recommendation? So I use a gloss, and I don't have a recommendation in terms of brand because, to be honest, never really looked. But this one's a Micador picture varnishing gloss. Okay, I use a spray, and but recently I bought not this one. It's the same company, but it's called. One moment, I'll go and find it because I can't remember what it's called. Let me find it. It's out in the other part of the studio. Retouch Varnish. That's it. Retouch Varnish. So the idea of Retouch Varnish is even though you've varnished it, if you want to make changes to it, you can still do that, right? Retouch Varnish. So I'm experimenting with that. National Art Materials. This one's a fixative for paper, charcoal and stuff on paper. And that's the one I generally use, Micador Picture Varnish. I haven't tried other brands or anything like that. I just grab whatever I can get in the actually it's from the local newsagent. They've got a little art supplies section, so that's where I get them from. Gary said, is there a list to bring for the Brian Cook workshops? No, there won't be a list of the materials, Gary, but we'll supply you with one. However, because I'm teaching the class, it'll be pretty much the same materials we use in the Learn to Paint Academy, and that's pretty much what Brian used anyway. The only difference, he used burnt sienna, but the same palette as me, as we teach in the Learn to Paint Academy, just the addition of burnt sienna. And yeah, so once you book in, Ron, who owns Wisteria Cottage, he will provide a list of materials for that. So, g'day Barb, how are you? Marie said, about your boards, here in New Hampshire, MDF has a shiny side and a corrugated side. I can find plywood in 3mm and hard board, which would be better. Without actually seeing it, Marie, I don't know which would be better. I'll show you how mine looks in its raw format, and you can perhaps try and find something like that. Boom, biddy, boom, boom. Okay, so the one I get, 3mm, and it's raw on both sides. Okay, So without being able to see the one you've got, I couldn't really recommend. Perhaps you could ask them for a sample of each to be sent to you, and then you could check it out from there. Manju says, when would you specifically use a painting medium for WMO? So, says it improves flow, and also linseed oil for WMO. It says slows the drying time. Using linseed oil only oil by mistake instead of water and had to wait for a couple of days. Continue with the painting. Yeah, well, Manju, I hardly use mediums with water mixable oils. I use water to thin it down, and the only medium I use, I've got that quick drying one from Cobra, and I'll use that. It's got a little bit of a glossy effect, so if I want to get some glossy effects in the painting, I'll use that. But apart from that, I really don't use mediums. You know, I bought about 4 bottles of linseed oil for water mixable oils, and I used it once, and I just kept going back to the way I paint very direct. I don't do a lot of glazing, things like that. So, and I thin the paint down with water, whether it's acrylics or water mixable oils. Gary said he loves fast medium fixer. It enables him to wipe it back. If you make a mistake and you're back to where you started, yep, good suggestion. You get the same result with Retouch Varnish, okay, with oils and acrylics. So yeah, that's probably one handy one to have. So if you get a painting to a certain point that you really like, and you don't want to destroy it, but you want to keep working on it, then you know, I think the Artilia Interactive have a fixing medium, and it does a similar job to the Retouch Varnish. So that's a good suggestion. G'day Lynn in Currumbin Waters. Video frozen, okay. Sujata said, started the ABA course, already love it. Lots to think about and analyse and work on. You made it very organised and easy to follow. That's what I'm trying to do, is make it really step-by-step and structured. Question, if I have a question in ABA course, how do I ask? Through support. Yeah, for the moment through support, and then we'll put in a facility as we grow and develop the site to be able to you know, ask questions within the site. But for the moment, you can just drop questions into support. Meryl said, I've heard of Rabbit Glue. My nearest store is 300 kilometres away. I'll ring them. That's probably best. Although I don't necessarily ring them and ask what they advise, because there's probably a more modern product, I'd say, that you could probably use. Linda says, do you ever use matte spray varnish for anything in particular, or does gloss give more shine and life? Yeah, to me, gloss is just a little bit more bright and happy, whereas matte's a little bit dull to me. So I just use gloss. There are some people who hate gloss finish on a painting, so it's a personal choice. Yeah. We don't have to forget about them necessarily, Manju. I do encourage experimentation, you know, and having a play around with them and seeing what you like, because just because I do it one way doesn't mean that's the right way. It's just my way. And if you have bought the mediums, play around with them until you figure out that it's worth continuing or it's not. You know, that's I've always had an attitude of experimentation, but then I tend to always come back to a sort of a baseline of what I know works for me. Okay, where are we? Judy said, dreaming of painting our concrete water tank. What sort of preparation would I need on the concrete? Now, Judy, that's not a question for me. I would say that's a question for, depending on whereabouts in the world you are. It looks like you're in Australia, so I would suggest that's a question for Bunnings. Go into the Bunnings section and go to the paint section there and ask one of their experts, and they'll give you the... you probably need some sort of sealant, because concrete's going to be quite absorbent, but you're also going to need a paint that's going to be durable in the outdoors. So you really need to talk to somebody who has experience doing murals and so on. Sherry says, I have the heart and soul of an artist, but I feel I am an imposter because I cannot see a painting in my mind. I must have a picture to go by. I am in awe of your ability to randomly block in shapes and create a picture as the one behind you. Is it natural, or did you develop that ability? No, it's not natural. In fact, Sherry, I've talked about in different videos about how over the last few years, I often get emails or messages from people saying, you're so lucky to have natural talent. And I have to remind people there's absolutely nothing natural about it at all. It's just study and it's practice, right? And that's all it is. So, and that includes seeing being able to see a painting in your head. When I first started out, I couldn't see paintings in my head at all. I couldn't imagine them, and I'm still not that good at it. But one day I found I was driving down the street, and hands up if you've had this experience, right? I was driving down the street, and all of a sudden I started to see trees with deep shadows and middle tones and where the sunlight was clipping on it. I'd never seen that before in my life, right? Why did I now all of a sudden start seeing that? From that day forward, I've seen the world through the eyes of an artist. And that only came about because I studied and I studied and I studied and I practiced painting, and I did it over and over, and I did tons of bad paintings, and eventually it just started to click and it all starts to fall into place, right? So it's not a natural ability. There are people who do have that as a natural ability. But most people have to develop it. It's just something you have to just work at. And if you have the heart and soul of an artist, you also need to have the desire strong enough to keep you committed to studying and learning and practicing, yeah? Which is what we try and encourage here. The other thing about like doing random or imagined landscapes is after you've painted a couple of hundred landscapes, it becomes pretty easy to sort of imagine them, right? And dream them up. So, keep working off reference material until you start to develop your own ideas, and that'll come in time. Serena says, after blocking in the blue of the ocean, do you go over it again with blue paint? Yeah, usually blues and yellows and greens. Usually, yeah. Okay. Caroline said, I thought it was the Cobra paints themselves that had the gloss, but I guess not. Cobra is a very strong pigmented paint, so it does appear a bit brighter and a bit more punchy than, say, a Montmartre brand of paint, which is more of a student grade. So yeah, they probably do appear a bit that way, but it's probably more just the strength of the pigmentation and less filler in the mix. Kathy said, my husband was an artist. That's fantastic, Kathy. Oh, hang on. My husband was an artist, and as we drove, he would talk about all the colours of the scenes we passed. Yeah, you start to see the world differently. Barbara says, all the time, trees, shadows, colours, only after learning more from you. So there you go. There's a case in point, right? The more you learn, the more you start to see things through different eyes. Chrissy said, I now see values. How good is that? In the landscape. Drives my husband mad when I point these things out when travelling. Good on you, Chrissy. You keep driving him mad. My pleasure, Sherry. Becky, imposter syndrome is something I struggled with initially. It sometimes still gets me. Your self-talk is important. Keep it positive even when you're not feeling it. I'm an artist, I can learn this, I do have an imagination, it just needs to be trained. Fantastic, Becky, I love that. Yeah, we all have an imagination. It's our greatest gift, I think, that separates us from the animal kingdom, and we can all train it. It's just that we're not in the habit of using it as enough. What's the brand of your water-based oils? Cobra is my preferred brand, and then the next brand is Winsor & Newton Artisan. So that's the Cobra ones. I'd use these all the time, except I find them hard to get in the bigger tubes. And Winsor & Newton Artisan. But if you're in Australia and you're trying it for the first time, just grab the Montmartre H2O. They're about $7 a tube, and you can give them a try. The only thing with the Montmartre is you will find some separation from the pigment and the linseed oil. Don't worry about it, just mush it back together. Just mush it back together. Okay, where are we up to? Colin said, holding a brush is similar to a violinist's bow hold. Loosen your grip. Absolutely, Colin. Absolutely. I agree with you, Jenny. Poor bunny rabbit doesn't want to be made into glue. Darling said, I believe one of the uses for rabbit glue in the past was to achieve a fine crackle finish to the surface. Ah, there you go. That's an interesting one. I think the glue is mixed in a formula with other ingredients to achieve that world fine. Yeah, you may well be right there, Darlene. That's not something I have knowledge on. Catherine said, I looked into Cobra through Amazon and I'm in the US. The prices are not expensive. Well, that's good. They're expensive here. But if they're not for you, then go for it. They're fantastic. Great paint, great paint. Okay, where are we up to here? Scrolling back. Gail says, yes, it takes time to see the world as an artist. Yes, but in time you do start to. Jenny said, yes, I do too. Since doing your method, I'm seeing the scene as an artist now with all the values. Fantastic, Jenny. G'day, Cindy in Canada. Yes, I look at light and shadow and everything now. Brilliant. Gail says, I'm starting to see everything as big shapes. Yes. That's good. This is good validation for me because I know that I'm not just, repeating things over and over and it's not sinking in. So I'm glad to hear this. Sujata said, yes, I have noticed. Now I look at the world around me in terms of shapes, colour and value and then see what they actually are. Good on you, Sujata. Linda says, that's happening to me every day. Clouds, trees, hard and soft edges. It's cool to see things through new eyes. Fantastic. Janet said, I've been working on paintings that I gave up on a while back. Watching you rework some of yours helped me a lot. Terrific, Janet. And in the members area, I've put up the recordings for the Unleash the Artist Within, and we did a whole session on how to analyse, critique and rework your old paintings. So that might help as well. Manju said, I see blending of colours and hard and soft edges. Brilliant. Lynn says, I went for a drive into the Currumbin Valley as I was so frustrated painting trees. And I did see the colour and shapes. It's helped me a lot. Now I have to do it with painting rocks. Yeah, I mean, if you're having trouble with a particular element, I think Lynn's pointed out something important, right? If you're having trouble with trees or rocks, one of the biggest problems is you just don't have a clear picture of what they look like in your own mind, right? So go out into the country and take hundreds of photos of trees, print them all out and stick them up on the wall in your studio. So you've got reference material there to work off. So you can see what the shapes are and you can see the colour and you can see the edges. Do the same thing with rocks. And then do little sketches of them, right? And the more you do this, the more familiarity, the more familiar you become with it. And the more it sinks in, right? And then it becomes easy. And then next thing you know, you're just waving the brush around and with a very carefree attitude, right? Which is important with painting. Don't be too attached to the outcome. Sandy said, I've spent years as a photographer, so that is an art unto itself. It certainly lends to painting. Yeah, I mean, you've already starting to train yourself to see compositions and so on, so that's fantastic. Shirley says, I cannot draw a thin line even with script brushes. Okay. Well, I hardly ever do thin lines if it's any consolation. When do you want to do a thin line and for what purpose? And does it matter? I mean, maybe you're not meant to do thin lines. Or maybe the script brush you've got is too thick and you might need a thinner one. I mean, there could be a number of different things. You could always use the edge of a palette knife, but I'm just trying to think. You could always just use the edge of a palette knife there. But I'm just trying to think why you'd want a thin line. I hardly ever use them, but yeah. Caroline says, I have a pet rabbit and he's beautiful. I'm sure he is. I love rabbits. I love baby goats as well. If I had a bit of land, I'd have 2 or 3 baby goats and maybe a rabbit. Becky's got 2 rescue rabbits. Love them. Shirley says, I zero in on trees, especially shadows. I like trees most of all. Yeah, I've got a bit of a thing for trees. And I think for me, the thing with trees is the fact that you can paint them in a way that they have form and volume. And shadows is an important thing. In fact, one of our artists in our group down in Tasmania, I've just noticed recently posted up a painting that she did. And I've noticed a big improvement in the way she's doing her trees because she's got that shadow in there, right? The dark side of it, kept it in there. Brilliant. Bridget says, good idea. about taking photos of trees and pinning them up. Yeah, totally. And like, I do this with my favourite artists as well. I print out all their paintings I can find, stick them in a scrapbook or a sketchbook, and then I can look back at them and then use that as a source of inspiration. Colin says, I see colours and compositions each time I bushwalk with camera in hand, testing the limits of my friends. That's the idea, Colin. I'm forever saying to my wife, oh, hang on a second, hang on, we'll just get a photo. But, you know, that habit has led to good things. So Tracy said, when I was a kid watching cartoons, I would always be looking at the background, seeing how everything was painted. Oh, that's interesting. A lot of that would have been in gouache, probably, the old cartoons and stuff. Yvonne says, I drive people crazy as I'm always walking behind taking photos. Maybe you and Colin need to take up the rear of any bushwalk. Yeah, Gary said maybe use a mole stick. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I'd do is I put my little pinky on the board and then I rest my hand there. So that's one option, to steady the hand if that's the problem, your hand's too shaky. And as Gary said, you can use a mole stick, which is just a stick that you clip onto the easel, and you can rest your arm on the stick. Takes a little bit of practice getting used to, but it's certainly an option. Thanks for that, Gary. Mary says, my farm is overrun with rabbits. Now, that's because you want them there or because they've just decided to move in, as they do. Alison says, do you need to learn the basics of drawing and pencil shading before being able to paint? It's a good question, Alison. Do you really need to master pencil drawing and shading? And really, shading is understanding values, dark to light, in order to be able to paint. My answer is no. I guess the classic way of learning to paint, if you go back into the 1800s, the French Impressionists, they all met at an atelier where people went to study, right? It was like doing a university degree. And in those traditional ateliers, for the first year, all you would do would be pencil drawing and charcoal drawing. And you'd be doing drawings from life. Okay, so they trained you to be a classical drawer first before you ever got to a brush and paint. And that's great if you are young and you have 4 years to dedicate to full-time study of painting. Most of us don't, right? So the way I've developed the Moore method of painting is to avoid the need to being a great drawer, okay? Now, that's not saying you don't need to become a great drawer. It will certainly help. But the Moore method of painting is sort of designed in a way where as long as you can see the big shapes and you can place them in the right spot, in the right shape on the canvas, then that sort of gets you over that hurdle of needing to learn to draw first. And most people can do that. Most people can see big shapes and they can figure out how to place them correctly on the canvas, right? So therefore the drawing becomes less necessary, but certainly understanding values is pretty important. So it is pretty important. So I hope that helps. If I had my time again, and if I knew what I know today about myself, my personality and so on, and what my true heart's desire was, which I had no idea of for most of my life, but if I knew all that, I would have gone back. If I was 17 again today, I would be booking in to university and studying for 4 years and learning everything in a traditional sense. But we can't look back, can we? Can only move forward. Okay. Rosalie says she's trained her husband so well that he stops automatically now if he sees a spot he thinks I'd like. He doesn't even have to ask. Good on you, Rosalie. That's the idea. Mary says, yes, eating my grass that I need for silage. They are little pests, but they look cute. Yeah, they are cute. Carlene loves freehand drawing. Yeah, I encourage everybody to have a sketchbook and a collection of pencils and to go out and sketch, especially like on location. If you're going out for a picnic somewhere, take your sketchbook and sketch a tree, sketch a rock, sketch your husband doing something he shouldn't be doing. It's a good little habit to be in, little 10-minute sketches, right? That'll definitely help your eye observational skills and so on. So it can't hurt at all. Okay. Cheers, Catherine. Appreciate that. Jenny says, I always find it easy to draw in. Is that okay? And I am with you about art school. Jenny, everything's okay. Whatever works for you is okay. There's no right or wrong. I teach a particular approach that I use, and I offer it to you to do what you want with, right? So you could go through the Moore method of painting. So I don't like that bit, and I do like this, and adapt it to your own approach, which is in essence what I did. I took from information from certain sources, like I became a certified teacher of Bill Alexander approach, which is the Bob Ross method. And there were bits about that I really liked, and a lot of it that didn't sit well with me. So I dropped out the bits that didn't work, and I added in bits that I felt made more sense. And yeah, so everything's okay. Just whatever you want to do is cool. Whatever makes you happy is fun. There's no one way to get to a result in painting and art, and that's the great thing about it. Linda says, I love how you created that tree from a big shaped dark block. It was so amazing to see how you did it. Thank you, Linda. So easy though, wasn't it, really? It was just about shape. At the end of the day, we already had our dark there, so it was just about shape. So that was Wednesday's live stream for those who may have missed it. Lynn said, I did do that with trees and I have them on the walls. You've taught me so much. Good on you, Lynn. Glad to hear that. Beryl says, I use a large paintbrush as a leaner. Yeah, absolutely. You could use a paintbrush and you could put it against the side of your easel, right, and hold it there, and then you could use that to rest your hand and steady this hand if this is your painting hand. So that's another good tip. Thank you, Meryl. Gary says, have you ever seen an artist using a USB moving camera trained on their painting, say 6 feet back, and showing on a monitor next to the painting so you can see the effect of marks on the canvas without jumping up and stepping back constantly? I've never seen an artist do that, Gary, no. Trying to imagine how that would work. I've not seen that. I personally like stepping back from my painting and getting fresh eyes on it. I don't know whether a monitor would give you the same information, but it may, so it may be worth trying. What I have seen though is, like if you've got your easel here, on the other wall, I've seen artists put up a mirror on the other wall and then constantly referring to the image in the mirror. Now that's going to give you a distorted view of the painting, but what it will do is it'll help make it easier for you to see fundamental flaws in your composition or your values, because your brain sees it differently when it's in the reverse, in a mirror. So I have seen artists do that, and I've seen artists have little pocket mirrors that they hold up as well. Something I don't typically do myself, but not necessarily, I think it's probably a good idea. Chris has been taking photos in the nursery next door at the autumn trees. That's a great idea. Gary says he's going on a road trip to central Queensland next month and was wondering if you had any must-see stops. Gary, I've only been on the one trip into central Queensland, so up through Emerald through to Winton, and the two places that I would highly recommend, not necessarily that paintable, so putting art aside for one moment, but just from pure magnificence, would be the Carnarvon Gorge and the Blackdown Tablelands National Parks, if you like walking through national parks. And then I went out through to Winton via Emerald, Longreach, Winton. There's really not much out there. But if you go south of Winton towards Middleton, there are some beautiful rocky sort of escarpments that come up out of the desert there. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's the direction you're going in, Gary, but enjoy that. But I've only been on the one trip and it was pretty rushed. So I'm probably not the best source of info on that one. Carleen said, Bob Ross painted the board in white paint first, then works on the wet paint. Yeah, he used Magic White. It was a completely different painting approach. Yeah, we won't get into a detailed discussion about it because it was a very different approach to painting. Bridget said, love the picture behind. Is that one you started on Wednesday's live session? No, this was on our advanced live sessions, which happen on Thursdays. So, yeah, that was from our advanced one. Becky said, I take photos of my paintings to find things that I need to fix. For some reason, the problems pop out more for me in the photos. Yeah, for the same reason that they do with a mirror, right? Is that your brain just sees it differently. And the things that need fixing become more obvious. So that's a great idea. And the other thing you could do, if you're taking a photo of your painting, is to convert it to black and white, just to check your values as well. Barbara said, Rod, since the 5-day challenge, I've been painting every day. I feel like I'm building momentum. Strangely, the more I paint, I believe not only am I improving, but now I believe I can paint. Fantastic, Barbara. That's great to hear. I'm really pleased. Yeah, there's no doubt at all that momentum and consistency is one of the big keys to becoming good at painting. And you're proving that. And the other thing is self-belief, right? Believing you can do it. So, Barbara, I'm really proud to hear that you're doing that. Well done. Going south from Longreach. Well, that you won't be far from Carnarvon Gorge there. Carnarvon Gorge is sort of between Roma and Blackland or something. It's up that way anyway. So definitely check it out. If you like going on bushwalks, there's a 26k one-day bushwalk, and it's pretty magnificent up through the gorge. But just double check on their website because they close a lot. It's only open at certain times of the year. Chris said, I spent 16 years in Emerald. A few places are worthy of checking out. Oh, there we are. Blackdown Tableland is the other one I was trying to think of. It's magnificent, the walks around there, but there's only a few camp spots there, so you'll need to double check. And Carnarvon Gorge, yep. Okay, I don't know Mount Moffat, but yeah, there you go. Thanks, Chrissy, for those suggestions. Okay, where are we up to here? Peter says, posting photos of a painting online often shows flaws not previously seen. Yes, because we become critical of our own work. But good point, Peter. Tracy said, I take photos on painting. It really helps. That's a good tip. All right, we're going to start winding up soon. So if you've got any last minute questions, I'm trying to find where we're up to here. Sandy says, I find cameras don't give an accurate colour representation, but it can pick up other flaws. Yeah, very true, Sandy. The camera definitely doesn't see things the way the human eye does, and it also compresses values and colours and distorts the image as well. So you've got to be mindful of that, especially if you're out in the landscape taking photos. And got this magnificent landscape in front of you, and then you get the photo on your computer and the mountain range is only this big, and you go, what happened there, right? So you're absolutely right. The camera only gives you a certain amount of information. Thank you, Jenny. Glad it's been of help. All right, friends, we're going to wind it up. Thank you all so much for joining me. Hope it's been of help. Enjoy your weekend and your painting over the weekend. Make a note if you're interested in the session we'll do next Thursday, which is going to be all about how to move from hobby artist up into starting to sell your work. We'll be doing a session on that, and I'll tell you more about the Artist Business Academy during that session. So that'll be next Friday. It'll be in between our Wednesday live stream and our Friday coffee chat. And it won't be on Facebook. It'll be on a private page. So I'll be sending out information about that over the next 2 or 3 days. So keep an eye out on social media and email and so on for the details on that, if it is of interest to you. If you have no interest in selling your painting, then ignore that. Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Wendy. Shirley says, acrylic's drying darker drives me nuts. Shirley, if that's the case, try water mixable oils. It'll change your life. Alrighty. Thanks, Kathy. Rosalie says, I found the module. Good-o. No, there's a fair bit of the content there, and I'll be adding more of Module 1 next week. So by next Friday, all of Module 1 will be there. And then we'll work on Module 2, and we'll just build it up progressively from there. So, yeah, I mean, the original plan was to deliver one module a month, but I think we'll be ahead of that schedule as we roll it out. All right. Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Sandy. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Mary. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Gail. Thanks, Cheryl. Melbourne Workshop. I have to decide today. I doubt it. I really doubt it, because I just heard on the radio this morning that as people are flying back into Queensland, they're being put into 14 days quarantine if they've been in Melbourne, and I'm not going to play that game. So it's looking very unlikely. I am considering the option of maybe doing a Zoom, maybe a 4-hour Zoom with a break in the middle. But I don't know. Maybe I won't do that. Maybe we'll just cancel it. And yeah, so I need to make a decision today. So look out for an email, Cheryl, and anyone else who's booked in for Melbourne. All right. Still waiting for the painting barb. It should be there soon. It's definitely left Australia, so not sure when it'll touch down in Canada, but it'll be there soon. And by the way, I mentioned before, but if you're interested in one of these 2 paintings from our Unleash the Artist Within demo paintings, then contact our support desk. Let them know which one you're interested in. And Wendy's in lockdown. Why are you in lockdown? Wendy, are you in Melbourne? Huh. Well, I hope that doesn't inconvenience you too much. I hope that for all our Melbourne friends. How long does it take for the water mixable oil to dry? A good Friday, says Julie. Good Friday to you too, Julie. Water mixable oils are dry in the same sort of time frame as traditional oils, and they have a 2-stage drying process. So whatever thinning medium you've used is the first thing to dry off, and then it forms a skin over it, and it's what we call touch dry, and that can occur anywhere between 2 to 7 days or 10 days, right? It depends on how much white you've used in it. Typically, white takes the longest to dry. And then for it to fully cure, that happens through a process of oxidation, and that can take 6 months to a year to fully cure. However, once it's touch dry, you can varnish it, you can put it in a frame, you can ship it, all those type of things. So, Manju's bought this one from our demo. We finished it yesterday. And looking at it, there's a fair bit of white in the sand. So I'm saying, 10 days before it'll be ready to ship up, pack up and ready to ship. Alrighty? But the great thing about water mixable oils is it doesn't dry fast, and it stays. You went to Melbourne, and so you're in 14-day quarantine at the moment, Wendy. What a bummer. So yeah, I just heard on the radio this morning that they're stopping people at the airport if you've been to Melbourne and making you go into 14 days quarantine. No